Dear friends, welcome back to The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This is just for entertainment purposes. I own no rights. I'm going to warn you now. The next few letters I'm going to read have some heavy elements. There's observed racism. There's talked about mild abuse. There's a bit of paraphernalia usage words in here. So just be warned, we're getting into it again. Here we go. November 18th, 1991. Dear friend, my brother finally called yesterday, and he can't make it home for any part of Thanksgiving weekend because he is behind on school because of football. My mom was so upset that she took me shopping for new school clothes. I know you think what I'm about to write is an exaggeration, but I promise you that it isn't. From the time we got into the car to the time we came home, my mom literally did not stop talking. Not once. Not even when I was in the dressing room trying on slacks. She just stood outside the dressing room and worried out loud. The things she said went all over the place. First, it was that my dad should have insisted that my brother come home if only for an afternoon. Then, it was that my sister had better start thinking more about her future and start applying to safety schools in case the good ones don't work out. And then she started saying that gray was a good color for me. I understand how my mom thinks. I really do. It's like when we were little, and we would go to the grocery store. My sister and brother would fight about the things that my sister and brother would fight about, and I would sit at the bottom of the shopping cart. And my mom would be so upset by the end of the shopping that she would push the cart fast, and I would feel like I was in a submarine. Yesterday was like that, except now I got to sit the front seat. When I saw Sam and Patrick at school today, they both agreed that my mom has very good taste in clothing. I told my mom this when I got home from school, and she smiled. She asked me if I wanted to invite Sam and Patrick over for dinner sometime, after the holidays are over, because my mom gets nervous enough as it is during the holidays. I called Sam and Patrick, and they said that they would. I'm really excited. The last time I had a friend over to dinner was Michael last year. We had tacos. The really great part was that Michael stayed over to sleep. We ended up sleeping very little. We mostly just talked about things like girls and movies and music. The one part I remember distinctly was walking around the neighborhood at night. My parents were asleep along with the rest of the houses. Michael looked into all the windows. It was dark and quiet. He said, "Do you think those people are nice?" I said, "The Andersons? Yeah, they're old." "What about those people?" "Well, Mrs. Lambert doesn't like baseballs going into her yard." "What about those people?" "Mrs. Tanner has been visiting her mother for 3 months. Mr. Tanner spends his weekends sitting on the back porch and listening to baseball games. I don't really know if they're nice or not, because they don't have children." "Is she sick?" "Is who sick?" "Mrs. Tanner's mother." "I don't think so. My mom would know, and she didn't say anything." Michael nodded. "They're getting a divorce." "You think so?" "Uh-huh." We just kept walking. Michael had a way of walking quiet sometimes. I guess I should have mentioned that my mom heard that Michael's parents are divorced now. She said that only 70% of marriages stay together when they lose a child. I think she read it in a magazine somewhere. Love always, Charlie. November 23rd, 1991. Dear friend, do you enjoy holidays with your family? I don't mean your mom and dad family, but your uncle and aunt and cousin family. Personally, I do. There are several reasons for this. First, I am very interested and fascinated by how everyone loves each other, but no one really likes each other. Second, the fights are always the same. They usually start when my mom's dad, my grandfather, finishes his third drink. It is around this time that he starts to talk a lot. My grandfather usually just complains about black people moving into the old neighborhood, and then my sister gets upset at him, and then my grandfather tells her that she doesn't know what she's talking about because she lives in the suburbs, and then he says how no one visits him in his retirement home, and finally he starts talking about all of the family's secrets, like how cousin so-and-so knocked up that waitress from the Big Boy. I should probably mention that my grandfather can't hear very well, so he says all of these things really loud. My sister tries to fight him, but she never wins. My grandfather is definitely more stubborn than she is. Mom usually helps her aunt prepare the food, which my grandfather always says is too dry, even if it's soup, and her aunt will then cry and lock herself in the bathroom. There is only one bathroom in my great-aunt's house, so this turns to trouble when all the beer starts to hit my cousins. They stand twisted in bladder positions and bang on the door for a few minutes and almost coax my great-aunt out. But then my grandfather curses something at my great-aunt, and the cycle starts all over again. With the exception of the one holiday when my grandfather passed out just after dinner, my cousins always have to go to the bathroom outside in the bushes. If you look out the windows like I do, you can see them, and it looks like they're on top of their hunting trip. Oh, it looks like they're on one of their hunting trips. I feel terribly sorry for my girl cousins and my other great aunts, because they don't really have the bushes option, especially when it's cold. I should mention that my dad usually just sits real quiet and drinks. My dad is not a big drinker at all, but when he has to spend time with my mom's family, he gets loaded, as my cousin Tommy says. Deep down, I think my dad would rather spend the holiday with his family in Ohio. That way, he wouldn't have to be around my grandfather. He doesn't like my grandfather very much, but he keeps quiet about it, even on the ride home. He just doesn't think it's his place. As the evening comes to an end, my grandfather is usually too drunk to do much of anything. My dad and my brother and my cousins carry him out to the car of the person who is least angry at him. It has always been my job to open doors for them along the way. My grandfather is very fat. I remember there was one time that my brother drove my grandfather back to the retirement home and I rode along. My brother always understood my grandfather. He rarely got angry at him unless my grandfather said something mean about my mom or my sister, or made a scene in public. I remember it was snowing really hard, and it was very quiet, almost peaceful, and my grandfather calmed down and started talking a different kind of talk. He told us that when he was 16, he had to leave school because his dad died, and someone had to support the family. He talked about the time when he had to go to the mill 3 times a day to see if there was any work for him, and he talked about how cold it was, and how hungry he was because he made sure his family always ate before him. Things he said we just wouldn't understand because we were lucky. Then he talked about his daughters, my mom and Aunt Helen. I know how your mom feels about me. I know Helen, too. There was one time I went to the mill. No work. None. I came home at 2 a.m, pissed and pissed. Your grandmother showed me their report cards. C+ average. And these were smart girls. So I went into their room and I beat some sense into them. And when I was done, and they were crying, I just held up their report cards and said, "This will never happen again." She still talks about it, your mother. But you know something? It never did happen again. They went to college. Both of them. I just wish I could have sent them. I always wanted to send them. I wish Helen could have understood that. I think your mother did. Deep down. She's a good woman. You should be proud of her. When I told my mom about this, she just looked very sad because he could never say those things to her. Not ever. Not even when he walked her down the aisle. But this Thanksgiving was different. It was my brother's football game, which we brought a VCR tape for my relatives to watch. The whole family was gathered around the TV, even my great aunts who never watched football. I'll never forget the looks on their faces when my brother took the field. It was a mixture of all things. My one cousin works in a gas station, and my other cousin has been out of work for 2 years since he injured his hand, and my other cousin has been wanting to go back to college for around 7 years. And my dad said once they were very jealous of my brother because he had a shot in life and was actually doing something about it. But in that moment, when my brother took the field, all that washed away and everyone was proud. At one point, my brother made a very big play on 3rd down, and everyone cheered, even though some of us had already seen the game before. I looked up at my dad, and he was smiling. I looked at my mom, and she was smiling, even though she was nervous about my brother getting hurt, which was strange, because it was a VCR tape of an old game, and she knew he didn't get hurt. My great aunts and my cousins and their children and everyone were also smiling, even my sister. There were only 2 people who weren't smiling. My grandfather and I. My grandfather was crying. The kind of crying that is a quiet secret. The kind of crying that only I noticed. I thought about him going into my mom's room when she was little, and hitting my mom and holding up her report card, and saying that her bad grades would never happen again. And I think now that maybe he meant my older brother, or my sister, or me. That he would make sure he was the last one to work in a mill. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't know if it's better to have your kids be happy and not go to college. I don't know if it's better to be close with your daughter or make sure that she has a better life than you do. I just don't know. I was just quiet, and I watched him. When the game was over and dinner was finished, everyone said what they were thankful for. A lot of it had to do with my brother, or family, or children, or God, and everyone meant it when they said it, regardless of what would happen tomorrow. When it came to my turn, I thought about it a lot, because this was the first time sitting at a big table with all the grown-ups since my brother wasn't here to take his seat. I'm thankful that my brother played football on television, so nobody fought. Most of the people around the table looked uncomfortable. Some looked angry. My dad looked like he knew I was right, but he didn't want to say anything because it wasn't his family. My mom was nervous about what her dad would do. Only one person at the table said anything. It was my great aunt, the one who usually locks herself in the bathroom. Amen. And somehow, that made it all right. When we were all getting ready to leave, I walked up to my grandfather and I gave him a hug and a kiss on the cheek. He wiped my lip print off with his palm and gave me a look. He doesn't like the boys in the family to touch him, but I'm very glad that I did it anyway, in case he dies. I never got to do that with my Aunt Helen. Love always, Charlie. December 7th, 1991. Dear friend, have you ever heard of a thing called Secret Santa? It's this activity where a group of friends draws names out of a hat, and they're supposed to buy a lot of Christmas presents for whatever person they choose. The presents are secretly placed in their lockers when they're not there. Then, at the end, you have a party, and all the people reveal who they really are as they give their last presents. Sam started doing this with her group of friends 3 years ago. Now it's some tradition, and supposedly the party at the end is always the best of the year. It happens the night after our last day of school before the break. I don't know who got me. I got Patrick. I'm really glad I got Patrick, even though I wished for Sam. I haven't seen Patrick in a few weeks except in shop class because he has been spending most of his time with Brad. So thinking about presents is a good way to think about him. The first present is going to be a mixtape. I just know that it should. I already have the songs picked and a theme. It's called One Winter, but I've decided not to hand color the cover. The first side has a lot of songs by the Village People and Blondie because Patrick likes that type of music a lot. It also has Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana, which Sam and Patrick love. But the second side is the one I like the most. It has winter kind of songs. Here they are. Asleep by the Smiths, Vapor Trail by Ride, Scarborough Fair by Simon and Garfunkel, A Whiter Shade of Pale by Procol Harum, Time of No Reply by Nick Drake, Dear Prudence by the Beatles, Gypsy by Suzanne Vega, Nights in White Satin by the Moody Blues, Daydream by Smashing Pumpkins, Dusk by Genesis before Phil Collins was even in the band, MLK by U2, Blackbird by the Beatles, Landslide by Fleetwood Mac, and finally, Asleep by the Smiths again. I spent all night working on it, and I hope Patrick likes it as much as I do, especially the second side. I hope it's the kind of second side that he can listen to wherever he drives alone, and feels like he belongs to something whenever he's sad. I hope it can be that for him. I had an amazing feeling when I finally held the tape in my hand. I just thought to myself that in the palm of my hand, there was this one tape that had all the memories and feelings and great joy and sadness, right there in the palm of my hand. And I thought about how many people have loved these songs, and how many people got through a lot of bad times because of those songs, and how many people enjoyed good times with those songs, and how much those songs really mean. I think it would be great to have written one of those songs. I bet if I wrote one of them, I would be very proud. I hope the people who wrote the songs are happy. I hope that they feel it's enough. I really do, because they've made me happy, and I'm only one person. I can't wait to get my driver's license. It's coming up soon. Incidentally, I've not told you about Bill in a while. But I guess there's not a lot to tell, because he just keeps giving me books that he doesn't give to his other students, and I keep reading them, and he keeps asking me to write papers, and I do. In the last month or so, I have read The Great Gatsby and A Separate Piece. I am starting to see a real trend in the kinds of books Bill gives me to read, and just like the tape of songs, it is amazing to hold each of them in the palm of my hand. They are all my favorites. All of them. Love always, Charlie. December 11th, 1991. Dear friend, Patrick loved the tape. I think he knows that I'm his secret Santa, though, because I think he knows that only I would do a tape like that. He also knows what my handwriting looks like. I don't know why I don't think of these things until it's too late. I really should have saved it for my last present. Incidentally, I have thought of my second gift for Patrick. It is magnetic poetry. Have you ever heard of this? In case you haven't, I will explain. Some guy or girl put a whole bunch of words on a sheet of magnet and then cut the words into separate layers. You put them on your refrigerator, and then you write poems while you make a sandwich. It's very fun. The gift from my secret Santa wasn't anything special. That made me sad. I bet you anything that Mary Elizabeth is my secret Santa, because only she would give me socks. Love always, Charlie. Dear friend, December 19th, 1991. I have since received thrift store slacks. I have also received a tie, white shirt, shoes, and an old belt. I'm guessing that my last gift at the party will be a suit coat, because it's the only thing left. I was told by a typed note to wear everything I had been given to the party. I hope there is something behind this. The good news is that Patrick liked all my gifts very much. Gift number 3 was a set of watercolor paints and some paper. I thought he might like to get them even if he never uses them. Gift number 4 was a harmonica and a book about playing it. I guess it's probably the same gift as the watercolors, but I really think that everyone should have watercolors, magnetic poetry, and a harmonica. My last gift before the party is a book called The Mayor of Castro Seat. It is about a man named Harvey Milk, who was a gay leader in San Francisco. I went to the library when Patrick told me he was gay, and I did some research because I honestly didn't know much about it. I found an article about a documentary movie about Harvey Milk, and when I couldn't find the movie, I just searched for his name and I found this book. I have not read it myself, but the description on the book seemed very good. I hope that it means something to Patrick. I can't wait for the party so I can give Patrick my party present. Incidentally, I have taken all my finals for this semester, and it has been very busy, and I would have told you all about it, but it just doesn't seem as interesting as these other things that have to do with holidays. Love always, Charlie. Now, I was actually going to go further, but I'm going to cut this because I'm rapidly running out of time because I need to free space on my phone. But, till next time, friends, thank you.